We now go to the second part on the session on acute glomerulonephritis. Let's talk about the clinical manifestations of AGN. Hematuria is usually gross or microscopic, which is described as very bright red or maybe described as brown or tea-colored. The assumption is that hematuria occurs because of the RBC hemolysis due to glomerular capillary wall leakage. Edema usually starts periorbitally, which is not noticeable upon waking up and then gravitates to the lower extremities on prolonged standing, manifesting as bipedal edema. This is usually due to fluid retention. Hypertension may be seen in these patients due to and is related to the increased intravascular or ECF volume expansion, or termed as relative hypervolemia. This is suspected in patients in the presence of cerebral symptoms. Tanggalin mo na kayo. As mentioned, cerebral symptoms is related to increased blood pressure. It may manifest as headache, nausea, vomiting, sensorial changes, irritability, nuchal pain, and transient visual loss. Encephalopathy may be seen and it may manifest as blurred vision, severe headache, or altered mental status to as severe as seizures. Encephalopathy would usually depend on the severity of hypertension, and it is based on the absolute change of the patient's baseline blood pressure to the rate of which it has risen. It can also result from the direct toxic effects of streptococcal antigens on the central nervous system. Oliguria or oligoanuria is a condition wherein the patient voids rarely or goes to the toilet without passing urine. This is usually due to a decreased GFR. Oliguria is usually quantified if the urine output is less than 0.8 to 1 ml per kilogram per hour or if there is less than 500 ml per 24 hours. On the other hand, the patient is considered anuric if there is total absence of urine output. On the other hand, polyuria may be defined as urine output greater than 3 ml per kilogram per hour or if the urine output is greater than 2 liters per 24 hours. Cardiopulmonary manifestations are as follows in the form of respiratory distress such as tachypnea, dyspnea, or orthopnea, or patients may even have chest pains and palpitations. This is usually due to circulatory congestion and it is not related to increased blood pressure. Anemia seen in these patients are usually transient and dilutional. It is usually normocytic and normochromic, and it is due to hemodilution as a consequence of hypervolemia. Renal insufficiency or azotemia is also seen in this patient, although the precise cause is not known. This is probably due to a reduced glomerular surface area or reduced capillary wall permeability or both, which then reduces the glomerular filtration rate. Physical examination of patients with AGN will manifest with hypertension and other signs of congestion such as tachycardia and tachypnea. There is also note of recent weight gain by the caretakers, usually seen as ill-fitting clothes or shoes. The height is usually not affected in these patients. Other physical examination findings will show edema, usually periorbital or facial, and then gravitates in the lower extremity. The throat may be hyperemic with presence of exudates, and the chest and lungs would show signs of pulmonary congestion. Congestion may also be seen in the physical examination of the heart although it has a regular rhythm, this patient may even manifest with murmur, and it is usually tachycardic. The abdomen is usually globular with presence of shifting dullness, usually seen in patients with ascites. The genitalia is normal looking, although some patients will manifest with scrotal or labial edema. Extremities are usually with full and bounding pulses, and bipedal edema is usually seen. In some patients, evidence of pyodermata may be seen. Laboratory findings in patients with AGN would usually show hematuria in the urinalysis. It is the most consistent finding, and it's usually defined as greater than or equal to 5 RBCs per high power field. The presence of RBC CAS localizes the bleeding to the glomerulus in 60 to 85% of patients. Proteinuria may be seen and is usually in direct proportion to the degree of hematuria. Leukocyturia or pyuria may also be seen, but it does not necessarily suggest an infection. Hematology-wise, the laboratory would usually show dilutional anemia. The renal function test may be normal to increase, and there may be signs of hyponatremia, which is also delusional in nature. In severe cases wherein there is renal failure, electrolyte imbalance in the form of hyperkalemia, hypocalcemia, hyperphosphatemia, and metabolic acidosis may be seen. Immunologic studies that would point to the immunologic nature of the disease would show an ASO titer to be increased or normal. However, it may not be elevated in patients with pyoderma because the skin lipids usually bind the streptolysin O, and it may be blunted by early antibiotic therapy. Anti-DNase B titer may also be seen, and it is the single most sensitive indicator of previous streptococcal infection. It is usually elevated in 90 to 95% of patients. One of the several evidences of the immunologic nature of the disease is the serum C3 level. It is usually depressed in 90 to 100% of patients. However, it may be normal in 11 to 27% of cases. The degree of depression is not correlated with severity, signs of infection, nor eventual outcome, and it would usually normalize within 6 to 8 weeks. However, persistently low levels of serum C3 is suggestive of chronic glomerulonephritis. Imaging studies of patients with AGN would show chest X-ray with signs of congestion in the form of cardiomegaly, pulmonary congestion, and/or pleural effusion. Imaging studies in the form of renal ultrasound would show nephromegaly, which signifies an acute process. However, in patients with small kidneys, this implies a chronic condition wherein the corticomedullary areas are not well delineated. The renal parenchyma are usually hyperechomic, and the corticomedullary areas are well delineated. Here is an example of a renal ultrasound. Take note that the renal parenchyma is hyperechoic and the corticomedullary areas are well delineated. Diagnosis of AGN is usually not difficult when the following are present. First, there is history of previous streptococcal infection. There are signs and symptoms of nephritis in the form of edema, hematuria, and hypertension, and there is serologic evidence of streptococcal infection as well as decrease in serum complement levels. As mentioned, there are several complications in patients with AGN. The most dreaded is hypertensive encephalopathy, and these are treated with diuretics and antihypertensives. Anticonvulsants may be necessary if the seizures or the encephalopathies are not controlled. Acute renal failure is managed by giving a low salt and low protein diet and correct the corresponding electrolyte or metabolic imbalance. Congestive heart failure is usually managed with oxygenation and antihypertensive. The preferred diuretic are loop diuretics. However, digitalis in patients with congestive heart failure due to AGN is usually controversial. It has no place in the management of AGN unless the patient has pre-existing cardiac disease. Let's now go to the management of patients with AGN. Supportive management would include bed rest, limitation of physical activity, salt restriction, as well as fluid limitation when indicated. Drug therapy is geared towards promoting sodium and water excretion by the use of diuretics. Antihypertensive may be given when necessary, and the giving of antibiotics is controversial, and it is usually given only to eradicate any residual streptococcal infection. The choice of antibiotic is either penicillin and or a macrolide in the form of erythromycin. Daily weight monitoring as well as intake and output should be done, as well as monitoring of the blood pressure. The prognosis of patients with AGN is usually good and self-limiting, and there is complete recovery in 90 to 95% of patients. As mentioned, clinical recovery usually sets in 1 month from the onset. One of the most common important modality in the management of patients with AGN is the monitoring of the resolution of urinary finding. Macroscopic or gross hematuria will resolve or may last for as long as 2 to 3 weeks. Microscopic hematuria may last for as long as 6 to 12 months, and proteinuria may last for as long as 3 to 6 months. Serum C3 or serum complement level of C3 would usually normalize within 6 to 8 weeks, and persistence of hypocomplementemia would usually indicate a chronic glomerulonephritis. Histologic resolution, if biopsies are done, would normalize within 1 to 2 years.